When I was in my late 20s, I worked for a major retail company in the Pacific Northwest called Fred Meyer. And early on, I had the opportunity to tag along with the CEO of the company as he went out and he visited the different stores and the various departments there at headquarters. Well, he'd been there 30-something years. I was really struck by so many things about him. I was struck by his confidence and his incredible, profound love of the company. But what I was most struck by was the open-hearted, authentic connection he had with every employee. It didn't matter where they were in the organization or what their role was. It seemed like he knew them all. He knew their names. He would ask about their families. He would ask about their work, how things were going, if there was anything that he could do for them. People loved him. He really epitomized that line from Rudyard Kipling's poem, If, where he says, "If you can walk with kings, but not lose the common touch." You see, this CEO always had that common touch, and people felt it. We would say that he was a servant leader, that he put other people before himself. You could feel that in him, in his way of being. And it was also very enlightened management because he knew that the company would only succeed if every employee in the company knew that they were valued and respected, knew that every one of them, no matter what their role was, they had an equal and an integral role to play in the success of the company. People feel that. Maybe you felt that in your own career when somebody treats you with that kind of respect. Well, in recent decades, we've had another term for this kind of leadership. It's called level 5 leadership. You may have heard of that before. It's a term that was coined by an author, Jim Collins. He wrote a best-selling business book called Good to Great. And he says that this level 5 leadership, the very top level of leadership, is easy to distinguish. It's easy to see the difference between that and even the level 1 down at level 4. He says that the X factor in great leadership is humility. Humility combined with a ferocious will to achieve something greater than yourself. He says that both level 4 and level 5 leaders have this incredible energy. They're relentless, they're driven, they're ambitious. The difference is in their motivation. This is for level 4 leaders. They're most concerned about themselves and thinking about what they're going to get out of this. How are they looking? What's going to accrue to them? Are they the center of attention? Maybe you know people like this, right? But a level 5 leader takes all of that same energy, that ambition, that drive, that commitment, and channels it into a passion for a cause or a company or a culture or some kind of quest, something bigger than themselves that they want to give themselves to. And so it's very selfless. They get out of themselves to lead the way for others to get on board. And Jim Collins says that these leaders, their primary focus is on serving. And maybe you've known some leaders like this too. Well, interestingly, I actually doubt very seriously if Jesus ever heard the term servant leadership or level 5 leadership. But in fact, this is exactly the kind of leadership that he embodied and that he exemplified. You see, he taught the disciples that the leader is not above everyone else. The leader is equal with everyone else. And not only that, but that it is the leader's role to serve those whom the leader is leading, to actually be of service to them, to put their needs before his or her own needs. It really is almost a disappearing in order to be of service to the others. So Jesus taught this to his disciples, and one of the common times that he would teach it is that evidently the disciples rather frequently got into arguments about who among them was the greatest, figuring out the pecking order or who was the top dog or whatever. And Jesus would take this opportunity to describe to them what it really meant to be the greatest. So there's a couple of examples in Mark chapter 9, verses 33 to 37, he says. Can't you just picture these guys? Anyway. After they began arguing over who of them was the best, Jesus sat down, called the 12 of them together, and said, "Whoever wants to be first must be last of all and servant of all." And similarly, in Matthew chapter 20, verses 27 to 28, Jesus says, "Whoever wishes to be first among you must be your slave, just as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve." That is such a powerful line. You know, in Unity, we say that we're not here to worship Jesus or to put him up on a pedestal that we can never reach. We're here to follow him. To me, that line right there, that he's here to serve, not to be served, just reinforces that. So in other words, you're not here as the leader to lord it over others and, tell everybody what to do. The first shall be last, and those who want to lead will take care of the others. So that means the leader is not going to be the one muscling up to the front of the line to be the first one to get the goodies or the support or help or whatever it is. That actually the leader is going to go to the back of the line and help everyone else get there. This is really beautiful teaching, and we kind of feel that affinity for Jesus as we hear it. But honestly, what's even more compelling is when he demonstrated it. Truly one of the most beautiful and moving passages in the Gospels, one that always brings a lump to my throat, is during the Lord's Supper, when Jesus washed the feet of all 12 of his disciples. And that included Judas, even though he knew that Judas was going to betray him. This simple, beautiful act of washing their feet. And this is told in the Gospel of John, chapter 13. But as we know here in Unity Renaissance, the Gospel of John actually was based on the Gospel of the Beloved Companion, the complete Gospel of Mary Magdalene. If you didn't know that, now you do. So here's how it's told in here. And I just, as you hear these words, just picture it. Think about what this would have been like. Now, before the feast of the Passover, Yeshua, Jesus, and his disciples gathered together in the city to share a supper. After the meal was ended, Yeshua arose from the table and laid aside his outer garment. He took a towel and he wrapped it around his waist. Then he poured water into the basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel that was wrapped around him. And then he gets into an exchange with Simon Peter. Peter's saying, "Oh no, that's not right. You shouldn't be washing my feet." Yada, yada, yada. And he talks him through it and eventually washes his feet. All the other disciples. So when Yeshua had washed their feet, put his outer garment back on, and sat down again, he said to them, "Do you know what I have done to you? You call me Rabbi, and it is fitting that you do so, for so I am. If I then, the teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you also should do as I have done to you. Only from the truth I tell you, a servant is not greater than his Lord, neither one who is sent greater than he who sent them." In other words, we're all equal. "If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them." In other words, go and do likewise, as he often said to them, and you will be blessed, and you will experience that beautiful sense of uplift. Can you imagine how this would have been for the disciples? Just think about this for a moment. Think how it would feel for you if you had Jesus in front of you and suddenly goes down and washes your feet. Oh my gosh. Incredibly humbling feeling. There was also a very powerful revolutionary message in there, because right before their eyes, Jesus was completely overturning these ideas of leadership that were being promoted by the religious authorities of the day. Don't you know that I don't really think they were servant leaders, we might say. They were much more into their authority, about being in control, telling people what to do, keeping them in line. So I contacted Jeanne de Quian. She's the person who translated and published the Gospel of the Beloved Companion. I said, tell me a little bit more about the background, or what you know about this particular story of the washing of the feet of the disciples. And she said this. She said, Yeshua was the great leveler. He constantly emphasized the need for humility in all things. This message was hard for the clergy of the day to hear. They had positioned themselves in a place above the people, both socially and politically. And anything or anyone who questioned or threatened their position was immediately put down, or demoted, basically, in the social order. She said the essence of Yeshua's and Miriam's teaching was that we're measured not by our birthright or our social position, but how well what we do is an expression of what we say. How much we're in alignment, how much we're in integrity, and we show up in that way. She said, Yeshua washed the feet of his flock. It was a simple but profound statement or acknowledgement of his sameness, a clear declaration of both his empathy and his compassion. You can just feel that, can't you, thinking about that? You know, in truth, this is the kind of leader. These are the kind of leaders that we most admire and we most appreciate, right? And in our heart of hearts, I believe it's our greatest longing of the people we want to be. This is how we want to be. We feel attracted to that idea of putting aside the pretenses and getting out of the ego, flattening out the hierarchy, putting other people before ourselves. You know, this is the kind of selfless service that we've seen in some of the world's great leaders. I'm thinking Mother Teresa and Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., and actually many of the behaviors of Pope Francis. So there's a great story told about Pope Francis, about what happened after his first night as Pope. So he had been sleeping in his very simple room as Pope Francis. And he came out in the morning, and he looked, and there standing outside the door was a Swiss army guard. So Francis said to him, "Who are you?" And the guard said, "I am your guard." And Francis said to him, "Well, where's your chair?" And the guard said, "My commandant says that we must stand while we guard." Francis says to him, "Well, now you have a new commandant." He says, "How long you been here?" And the guard says, "All night." And Francis says, "Wait a minute." And he goes out, and he gets a chair, and he brings it back out for the guy to sit on. And then he asks the guard, "Have you had anything to eat?" And the guard starts to kind of talk about his commandant again. His voice starts to kind of trail off. And Francis says, "Wait a minute." And he goes inside, and he gets a sandwich, and he comes out, and they sit down, and they eat together. Such a simple thing, but so profound. Just stripping away all that pomp and protocol, just to be human with each other. St. Francis of Assisi once said, "Preach the gospel at all times, and when necessary, use words." Live it. You see, it's when we live it that it changes our lives. And actually feels incredibly good. The ego will have us believe we got to cling on to our role or our status or our position, whatever it is. But in reality, you put all that stuff aside, man, you feel wide open and gloriously alive. And so with that in mind, I'd like to do a little demonstration now. we're going to have a little virtual foot washing. Don't worry, it's not you. With just a couple of select folks, so that we can get a sense of really how this feels. And so with that, I'd like to begin by calling up our wonderful, beautiful business manager here, Paul Mitchum, also the head of our live streaming and sound team, and my right-hand person here at Uni Renaissance. I was going to use real water, then I realized you would all freak out, so I'm not doing that today. Paul is putting his feet into the pail, and I am pouring my water over his feet. And as I wash them, my dear friend, I want you to know what an incredible honor it is to work with you and to know you, and how brilliant that light inside of you is, and how grateful I am every day for you. The ways you serve, the ways you love, the ways you give. I behold that beautiful spiritual essence in you, and I'm so grateful. And now I'm drying Paul's feet with all my love and gratitude. Thank you, beloved. I'd like to call up Ann DeMichael, our cherished prayer and pastoral care director. It's empty now. It's all clean and purelled. Now I'm pouring water on your lovely feet. And as I wash them, my beloved friend, I have so much gratitude in my heart for this amazing soul that you are. I'm grateful for your friendship, for your mentorship, for your abiding light, for that boundless love within you. And I know that all good things are flowing into you and expressing as you. I'm so grateful to serve with you, Anne, with all my heart. I love you. Thank you. And now I'm drying Anne's feet, beholding that light in her. And so it is. Bless your hand. You see, this teaching about being a servant leader isn't just about Jesus. It isn't just about CEOs. It's about every single one of us. And what a perfect time for us to be getting this message. Because we're all leaders in some way or another. And we're all being called to lead right now. To lead is to serve. Like never before, we are experiencing the incredible, obvious interconnection of all humanity. And this opportunity in us to rise into that, to our highest and best self. Of course, we take care of our own health. Of course, we take necessary precautions. But also ask ourselves, how can I serve? How can I give to others now? You know, we're more separated and isolated. It's going to be this way for a little while. In what ways can I use high tech to achieve high touch? Can I pick up the phone? Can I call someone across town? Just let them know I'm thinking about them. Let them know they matter to me. The people in nursing homes, people who can't have visitors now. What can I do? What note can I send? What prayer can I pray? This is what it's about. And this actually is the opportunity before us, as challenging and frustrating as this whole thing is, we have the opportunity to realize in a way we never have before our oneness and to rise into that. As we do, we'll come through this virus. It will come, it will go. But hopefully we'll be elevated into a new level of consciousness, the kind of consciousness that can change the world. Thank you all for being here today. Let's turn now to our meditation. I invite you to close your eyes, getting comfortable in your seat. Breathe in deeply. Release and let it go. Feeling the peace of God wash over you in this very moment. Feeling all the love and support of people who care about you, God with skin on, all the ones rooting for you. Tune into that incredible wealth of light and strength, faith, power, and love within you. We each have everything we need to come through what is before us. Now is our time to tap into all of those beautiful spiritual powers and put them to use. Always with that gentle guidance, that assurance and support of spirit. I invite you to breathe in and release. Release into the flow of life, into the goodness of life. Know that all is unfolding as it should and all will be well. Allow yourself to rest for a few moments as you listen to your own inner guidance in the silence. We feel gratitude stir within us as we think about our shared journey of awakening, as we think about our companionship with one another, those who've touched our lives and those whose lives we can touch. We celebrate the glory of God expressing in each and every human being. And for all of this, we're grateful. Thank you, God. And so it is.